Biden and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau have a lot to discuss near the top of the agenda, our global security and continental defense. While the U.S. welcomes Canada's recent investments in modernizing aerospace defense, Washington's representative to Ottawa is signaling it's not enough.
We're facing 21st century threats, and we need 21st century responses, and 21st century responses cost money.
Kirsten Hillman is Canada's ambassador to the U.S. Ambassador, it's great to have you in studio. Thanks for coming in.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You heard what David Cohen had to say there. There's sort of been this drumbeat leading up to this, that the U.S. wants to see more spending on NORAD faster. Do you think that's the big request coming out of this?
Well, I guess where I would say is in Washington. What I hear from the Americans repeatedly is that they are satisfied with the upward trajectory that we're on in terms of our defense spending. NORAD modernization is a big part of that, but our very significant presence in Ukraine and contribution to supporting the Ukrainians from this terrible invasion from Russia and recent procurement announcements and others. So, no question, defense spending, NORAD modernization, security will be on the agenda, and we welcome that because, I do agree with Ambassador Cohen that today's problems require today's solutions, and Canada is very committed to that.
They're satisfied with the upward trajectory, but are they satisfied with the speed of that slope, right? Because it can go this way. I think the Americans would like it to be more vertical than it is at this point.
I think that the Americans, they have a very large defense budget, probably the largest in the world, and I think that they are very keen to make sure that all partners are also putting their best foot forward when it comes to not just the numbers, the dollars, but what specific countries bring to the table in terms of their unique abilities and specializations. So NORAD modernization is a really good example. Canada is a northern country. We are an Arctic nation. We are committed to this bilateral air defense system that we have with the Americans and focusing in on some of our special areas of expertise, which is indeed operating in the north. But other things like cybersecurity, and there are other areas where we really do have special abilities, and I think that part of the interesting conversation with the Americans and other allies is now, and as we move forward into making other investments and other commitments, what is the specific role Canada can play? What are the specific capabilities that we can bring?
Well, based on what we heard from the White House today and in the run-up to this, they do keep pointing to NORAD and the idea of Arctic defense and protecting the Arctic in a way of Canada making a larger commitment to continental security in a way that would free up the U.S., I guess, to deal with overseas concerns. I mean, is that the cleanest way or the clearest way for Canada to contribute more is through the NORAD approach?
Well, I think that NORAD is a very, very important priority for Canada. I personally, as Canada's ambassador to the United States, am always very proud to highlight this binational arrangement that we have. It's the only binational command in the world, and it's incredibly special, and it sort of underlines the very special nature of our relationship. And it was put to the test recently, right, with the Chinese balloons, and it operated exactly as it's meant to. So we're in a moment where, yes, Canadians, but also importantly Americans who don't necessarily follow defense issues all the time, are aware of NORAD. They understand it. They realize its value. So we should be building on that. And there's no doubt in my mind that the Prime Minister and the President will have a good discussion around the importance of NORAD.
Do you think they'll have an announcement that builds on our current commitments to NORAD on Friday? Do you think we're going to see meaningful progress on accelerating or increasing our approach?
Well, I think we'll have to see what comes out of that meeting. But, I think the last thing to mention is that we are in the middle of a defense policy review. And in our defense policy review, we're consulting Canadians, and we're consulting people in our own country, but we're also consulting our allies, including the Americans. And that kind of gets back to my point around we want to talk to our allies about when Canada spends its money, when Canada deploys its troops, when we do what we want to do to assist our allies around the world, at home and around the world, what is our best contribution? Where can our money and our efforts go the furthest? And those are really powerful conversations. So it's about how much, I suppose, but it's really about what and how you make the most of the contributions that you're putting on the table.
The U.S. talks about NORAD, and obviously in the context of continental security. They also are speaking about Haiti in that context. We know that this will be the second face-to-face meeting in a row where the President is going to raise this with the Prime Minister. Do you anticipate we will get some clarity on Friday on whether or not Canada will take on an increased role, a leadership role in Haiti?
So it's interesting the way you pose that question, that you say the president will raise it with the prime minister. I think the prime minister will raise it with the president. I think that they will together discuss the situation in Haiti, because both countries are paying a lot of attention and comparing notes all the time. Our experts are talking several times a week around what is going on in Haiti, what they're seeing on the ground, how the measures we've already put in place are working, what's more effective, what's less effective. So I think both leaders will share their thoughts on that and compare notes on that. We are working with the Americans, but we're also working with a lot of countries in the region and allies and international organizations. So I think that they're going to want to discuss all of that. And one thing that I think is most important in this discussion is that we make sure that we continue to have the same shared goal, and that is to sort of stabilize the country in a way that is sustainable for the Haitians and is something that the Haitians want for their country.
Right, but the U.S. request or hope has been for Canada to take a direct leadership role in whatever the official response is from the international community. Will we get clarity on that Friday? Because so far the response has always been it needs to be Haitian-led. We're there to help in ways that we can, sanctions, police training, support. But the U.S. ask goes beyond that. Do you think we'll get that answer on Friday?
I think the U.S. ask is for Canada to be part of the leadership of countries that are interested in making sure that things get onto a better footing in Haiti. And I think that we are doing that. And we are doing it through all the means that you have just mentioned, including trying to make sure that we're responding to the Haitians and what the Haitians want. So that discussion will, I think, happen in that context. It's not what the U.S. wants. It's got to be what Haitians want for Haiti.
So in Haiti, it comes up when we ask about the Safe Third Country Agreement with the United States. They talk about the migration at Roxham Road. They say we need to address root causes. They point to the political instability in Haiti as a root cause of migration, or a potential root cause. Do you think in the U.S. mind, action on one is linked to action on the other? That if we're going to get something that deals with the challenges at Roxham Road, there needs to be more significant action in Haiti from Canada?
I don't think they're linking those issues in that direct way. No, I don't. The way the conversation happens with the Americans and our other partners in the hemisphere is around the root causes of migration, which, yes, some of them are in Haiti. There's other countries that are in dire straits in the hemisphere as well, and those are leading to displaced peoples. So what we're talking about is how to, of course, stabilize those countries where those difficulties are taking place, how to find relief for them in neighboring countries, how to find relief for them elsewhere if necessary. And that's the way the conversation is going. It is not a direct, one for one, no.
We had Scotty Greenwood on the show last night, who I'm sure you know well, talking about the economic hopes coming out of this and focusing on critical minerals. One thing she said is Canada needs to move faster on approving extraction projects, mining projects, big projects that will feed into the critical mineral continental supply system. Pierre Poilievre made that point today, that it's been decades in the ring of fire with no active projects. Are you hearing that in Washington, that they want Canada to move faster on this to meet the needs of this industry?
That's not how I hear it in Washington. What I hear, there's no doubt that Canada needs to be efficient in moving forward in this very important area of expanding our critical minerals capabilities. But that has to be done in a way that is environmentally sustainable and that is respectful of the communities that are involved in the regions where those minerals will be found. That, I think, is really important. One of the specific attractions that we have as a country, as a supplier of critical minerals, as a processor of critical minerals, is that we do so in an environmentally sustainable way. We do so with respect for the communities where those resources are. So if we short circuit that, then our sort of the specific value of the Canadian minerals is lost. We might as well be some of these other countries that we're all trying to get ourselves away from because we don't really feel that they are extracting these in a way that makes sense. So when I talk to folks in Washington about this, what they're interested in is making sure that they partner to the maximum extent with Canada, not just because we have the minerals, but because we extract them and we process them in a way that is socially and environmentally conscious and responsible.
But is there a way to do all of those things? Because obviously those are very important. I'm not suggesting they're not. But to do it faster, because you hear the criticism that sometimes it could take 25 years to get a mine ready to be operational, 15, 20, 25 years. And with this almost like gold rush mentality right now for electric vehicles and to build that industry and the quest for capital, does Canada need to be more nimble on this to meet that demand?
I think there's probably always a way to do things better and more efficiently, right? Not just the mining, getting the permits in place, but all of the things that go around making sure we have everything right. So in order to mine those products responsibly, we can always do better. We should always be working to do better, and we are.
So we're going to hear from the President and the Prime Minister around 4 o'clock Eastern, give or take, on Friday. What does success look like for Canada out of the President's first visit to the country?
So, when the President was first elected, Canada and the United States developed this document and plan for renewing our partnership, renewal of the Canada-US partnership. And it was exactly about that. It was trying to find ways in which our relationship had maybe not been as strong as we would have wanted it to be on areas of joint commitment, climate change, international alliances, helping the world, democracies. I feel that 2 years on, we have made a lot of really important progress in working together in those areas. And so I think success this week is, do we come out of this visit by saying, okay, our partnership is renewed, yes. But not only that, we have a shared vision for the future. And in that vision, Canada and the US have identified very concrete ways in which we are going to make each other stronger, more resilient, more prosperous, more environmentally conscious, fighting climate change, and having safer, more secure, more equitable societies. So if we can say we have not only just taken stock of where we're at, but we've taken stock and we set the bar really high for how we are going to be working to mutually support each other in facing the not insignificant challenges of the day.
Okay, Ambassador Hillman, it's great to see you. Thanks
Great
for coming in.
to see you. Thank you.
So what can Canadians expect to hear in that speech? Bruce Heyman is a former U.S. ambassador to Canada, and he joins me now. So Ambassador Heyman, when Canadians tune into Biden's speech on Friday, what do you think they're going to hear?
Affirmation of the importance of the Canada-U.S. relationship, and we have no better partner, no better ally, no better friend than Canada. And that's what you would expect, but it's so good to hear it. We know the relationship is strong and important, but having these moments where a president makes the journey and comes to your capital and expresses it directly to you and the Canadian people, that's an important aspect of a relationship between our two countries, and I'm so glad this trip is coming about.
Okay, that's what the President is going to say publicly, but there are a few issues they've got to deal with behind closed doors. I mean, just how blunt do you think those conversations, those private conversations, are going to be?
They'll be pretty direct. Blunt is a hard term because blunt means hard force. The reality is you sit down as friends. Both the President and the Prime Minister know each other fairly well at this point. They knew each other when he was Vice President. They know each other now as President, and multiple interactions, both on phone, video, in person, around the world. And so they're going to come together as friends. And as friends sitting across the table, when you have things that you want from a friend, it's a very different conversation than adversaries or other difficult issues. So blunt, he'll be straightforward, he'll be honest, but the President and the Prime Minister are affable people. The tone that they take in general is constructive and upbeat, but they'll be direct. The President will be very direct.
So we know defense spending and NORAD modernization, that's going to be a topic of discussion. Canada ranks near the bottom of the NATO allies in terms of investment in the military. The U.S. would like to see a clear upward trajectory. I think they've made that very clear on military spending in the country. I mean, what sort of a message do you expect the President to deliver to the Prime Minister on that?
So I think you've outlined that well. Look, let's be realistic. I had these conversations with the Harper government while I was ambassador, and when we were coming up with the NATO commitments. I had these conversations with the Trudeau government, that this is an ongoing conversation that has taken place regardless of party in the United States, that there is a degree of expectation that the Canadians, raise their military spending. to meet the peer group in NATO and meet the expectations domestically for NORAD. So it wouldn't surprise me if this conversation came up, and we'll see how forceful it is. But in the preview from the White House today, this was clearly a subject that is going to be top of mind for the president. And I would also say, as it pertains to Ukraine and helping Ukraine out, there probably will be some asks here from Canada to help out further in the good work that you've already done.
Well, another issue that I think is on the agenda based on what we heard from the White House and what we heard in Mexico City the last time they met face-to-face is Haiti. We know the U.S. is raising the prospect of Canada leading some sort of international security force to help stabilize the situation as best they can in that country. And at least right now, sir, that appears to be a bit of a non-starter for the Canadian government. I mean, do you expect any movement on that one?
I don't know. Much of this has been negotiated by our embassy in Ottawa and your embassy in Washington, and these conversations are ongoing. And so I don't know whether something will be resolved at this point or not. But the fact of the matter is, I think a very direct message is, you know, Canada, you're a member of NATO, you're a partner in NORAD, you're a G7 country. To play at this level on the world stage, there's some expectation that, you know, we're going to have to count on you to take a leadership role in certain areas. In this region, we need help collectively in Haiti. Haiti is a very difficult place right now, and this is a place that Canada could potentially be very helpful.
This visit comes as the Prime Minister and his government, they're in the middle of this growing and seemingly never-ending controversy about allegations that Beijing backed meddling in Canadian elections. A public inquiry is a demand from the Prime Minister's political opponents. Is this registering, do you think, with the U.S. government? Do you think this could be an issue that comes up during this visit?
It may come up. I think that the larger issue is more globally the role of China and Russia now. Look at the juxtaposition of the world leader visits that are taking place this week. And you have the head of the largest economy and military of the world, the President of the United States, coming to visit his best friend, Canada. And you have the Chinese visiting their newfound friend, Russia. The differences are stark and the contrasts are stark, but look, there are very strong messages here that are being sent as a result. And I think that, you know, the conversation around the world outside of this region and what's taking place will be, you know, a topic that will be top of mind, I think, in these conversations.
That global polarization, autocracy on one side, democracy on the other, that's
Right.
And China in particular, that's a big part of the critical mineral conversation and the strategy that's been laid out to build North American supply chains for these future industries, not have to rely on a country like China. We've heard from business groups and we've heard from people like Scotty Greenwood saying that, you know, Canada just doesn't move fast enough on project approvals. Is this something you felt when you were the ambassador here, that Canada just doesn't get these minerals and products to market quickly enough and needs to accelerate it if we're going to take advantage of this opportunity that's opening up right now?
You know, Americans are very quick to act on a lot of things. Sometimes it works really well for us and other times it doesn't. Canadians are slower, more measured, and more deliberative in their decision process. And sometimes it works really well for you, and sometimes maybe not as well. I would say there's a stark difference between our behaviors in this regard, and it wouldn't surprise me if we'd like to see Canada go a bit faster in a few of these areas. Canada has a strong competitive advantage. I've had this conversation with Prime Minister Trudeau. You have a very strong competitive advantage with regard to critical minerals. Now the question is, what are you going to do? How are you going to get them delivered? And how are we going to make that work very quickly? Because the economies are changing very fast in EV and other components that require these critical minerals. And so I think it's to the U.S.-Canada relationship's benefit to see Canada move fast on this.
So you think they need to speed it up in a big way? I mean, the Inflation Reduction Act has put all this money on the table, all these subsidies on the table south of the border that we just can't match dollar for dollar as a country with an economy this size. What sort of measures do you think they need to do to boost the alacrity of this sort of response to the opportunity and the challenge?
I think we have 10 times the size of the economy, so we'd never have that expectation that you do that. But I think you need to be very targeted in your approach and identify those areas where it can dovetail so that we can do things together, make things together, build things together. And I do think the critical mineral area is a strong competitive advantage for you. And leaning in on that, where I think the Prime Minister has wanted to do, I think is a good thing. The speed in which you do that is a domestic issue that you guys will have to work through.
Okay, Bruce Heyman, it was really nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on tonight. That's Bruce Heyman, the former U.S. Ambassador to Canada.
It's a pleasure. Good to be with you.